Welcome to Toque Talk.
Hey, and we're live.
We're live. Hey, everybody.
Episode 10.
What's going on?
10.
Whoa, 10 already.
Of, solitary confinement and entertainment with...
All solitary confinements, yeah. I don't know if it's solitary.
We'll call it that.
For Brent Fitz it is, because Brent Fitz is in a new basement. I don't know if you know this or not, but he's just been basement hopping all across Winnipeg.
I know, basement sloth. That's my new
Mr.
job.
Sloth.
There's no Jets paraphernalia behind you. It's not the same.
Oh,
he does. He does. Look.
Oh, don't
Right by his left
don't
elbow.
See it,
There's
though, Brent, you got to move, so show the camera.
Oh, Blue Bombers. He's
It's
got Blue
a
Bombers.
couple sticks back there.
Look
Look out.
That's a grand poobah, too.
Hey, is that where didn't Joe Fahmy steal a table or something that's down there in that basement somewhere?
Yeah, true story. Joe Fahmy came up to
Joe
Winnipeg,
Fahmy's from New York, by the way. This is a crazy story.
and he came up to one of the NHL Heritage Classic games where the Jets played the Oilers at the stadium outside in October. Anyway, and Lee and I said, if you're going to come to Winnipeg, probably one of the most exciting times would be during a major hockey event. So Joe comes up and he stays in a hotel, and the whole hotel is lambasted with, Jets memorabilia and stuff. And after the weekend, they took all the branding stuff down. They had this killer, a coffee table in the lobby with the massive Jets logo. And Lee and I kept eyeing it up like, that's the coolest table we've ever seen. So Joe checks out of his hotel room on Sunday, and we go to pick him up to take him to the airport to go back to New York. And he's running out of the hotel lobby. We're like, Joe, what are you doing? He's like, go, 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 run, run, run. We're like, what the hell? Get in the car, get in the car. So he stole the top of the table. It was like a sticker. And it's
Awesome.
it's on the wall.
Can I see it? Oh,
Wow.
well done.
It lives in Winnipeg in Lee's basement now. So
That's amazing.
good story, right?
Hello,
How are you guys?
Hello, Winnipeg hotline. Yes, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, 911 Winnipeg. Like to report
So
crime.
okay. What are you guys doing? What's everybody doing in LA and Vegas?
Yeah, once again, we got 2 guys in LA, 2 guys in Winnipeg, and I'm in Vegas. So, yeah, it's been interesting. I've gone out a couple times. I'm trying to think what I did. Oh, I saw Zach Throne. Anybody who he's filled in for, who's he filled in for? Corey, and he's filled in for, well, you moved to drums once and he played bass. Anyway, he's kind of like the 5th member of the band. So I've seen a few friends during. They're doing a record with Corey Taylor from Slipknot. So
Right.
Zach is playing guitar in Corey Taylor's solo band, and that's pretty exciting for him. So, other than that, I've just kind of been around. I mean, I'm still not super gung ho about, going out and whatnot. So, but
Not me. I've been out almost every day.
well, yeah, out, but
Yeah,
restaurants. You've been to a couple restaurants.
Well, I went to a couple of restaurants. We talked about that last week. But I've been out on the trail a lot, which,
sure, yeah.
it's more acceptable. There's a lot more social distancing area.
Yeah.
But I knocked out another 9.5 miles yesterday at the Backbone Trail. I have exactly 24 miles left to do before I'm done, and I'm going to do it before the 26th of this month,
Which is
which is my 50th birthday.
Corey's birthday. That's right. He's the old guy in the band. We're all way younger than him.
And I know we often talk about the beard, but let's not discredit that glorious hair. You've got the old Todd Kearns 87 flip going there. You look pretty good.
87.
No,
I'm not
1987.
Hair
Yeah.
toss.
1987.
Thanks for noticing, Darren. I worked really
It's got
hard
that
on
real
it
metal
today.
edge look to it. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. He goes to the same. He goes to the same wig guy as I do. That's all.
Well, wait, if it was said Metal Edge, Darren, but it's a Canadian show, so wouldn't it be more
know
like
it
Meat
exactly. Drew
Magazine?
Masters, Meat Magazine.
Magazine, which stands for
Yes,
Metal
it does,
Events
yeah.
Around Toronto.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
There you go.
Slick Toxic,
Sven Galley.
Big House, Sven Guy / Puppet.
I used to love
bands
that
like
magazine,
were
and it
always
was
in there.
free. It was great. Well, for the long time.
was
yeah.
free?
I think they.
Age of Electric was in it back
Yeah,
then.
I still actually probably have a box of them sometimes. So maybe one of these Toque Talks, I'll bring out some of them and we can talk about it. Because you know what was really cool about it is that at the back it always had the agenda as to which band was playing where and all the clubs around Toronto. And
Right.
I remember looking at those, you know, and you wouldn't ever you'd have to decide where you'd want to go. Now you're lucky if there's a band playing at all. So we can look back on those with fond memories.
Yeah. That's true of pretty much everywhere, including places like Calgary and Edmonton and Winnipeg and all that kind of stuff. I think it used to be
Speaking of club
bananas
bands, I
back in
noticed
the day.
today I was looking, the Ontario government has opened up I guess what they would consider the next phase in the coronavirus, everybody go back to doing what they're doing scenario. With the exception of restaurants and bars can open with limited capacity, but there is absolutely no singing, no dancing. So it's just like Footloose. Yeah, and that's true. And I actually read a medical report saying that the reason is because when you dance, you tend to get close to people, and when you sing, you spit. So
you spit.
So maybe Kevin Bacon can come and release us from this prison.
But you know, the thing is I also read a poll that all of the club bands in Toronto don't notice a difference because nobody's dancing. So everybody.
Oh.
So it's all the same.
You know, there's some gigs that have started to open up around here.
Yeah,
So
right?
a couple of friends of mine are starting to gig in bar, doing cover gigs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Like where? Like what kind of places are you?
Like dive bars that have bands still.
Right. I figured those would be the first. Would be like kind of punk rock places.
They're immune to all that
and like,
stuff.
little.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey,
What
Tom,
about like is the baked potato or anything like that happening? Baked potato?
That hasn't opened up yet, but hopefully soon.
Todd, I heard though that Vegas on Fremont, where they have all those stages, right, on Fremont Street. I think they tried. I heard that, and they shut them down like after an hour or something.
I read an announcement, and they announced Zoe Bowie was playing. Some friends of local friends of ours. So I texted Chris from Zoe Bowie. I'm like, dude, back to work, and he goes. In the course of while he was writing it, I think he got another text or some sort of note that it wasn't happening. So it literally went from like, yeah, dude, it's going to be great. Oh, hang on. I just got a message. It's not happening. so it was really bizarre. Yeah.
My sister got called like yesterday or the day before that her Michael Jackson show is coming back in a week or so. The one over here. So
that's promising.
This all sounds good, like when it's actually in full swing. I guess.
Well, it sounds good, but if you're, it depends what side of the. I mean, if it's a little premature, then it's not good at all. But we'll see what happens. I'm very optimistic, but at the same time, like, okay, well, if you say so, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody's going to turn down going back to work. That's just straight up. Like we're all kind of like, yeah, sure, let's go play a gig. That'd be fun.
We should talk about our video again because we kind of teased to it because we're almost ready to. We're almost done, right?
Yeah. Well,
for Canada Day.
A live performance on Canada Day via the internet. So by the time we do the live video on Canada Day, maybe they'll be starting to talk about Canada Day being or live shows starting to happen around then. But in the meantime, we're preparing for a Canada Day performance on
a Coronacast. Yeah,
Coronacast. Exactly.
None of us together, but playing together, like in different cities.
Playing together from Los Angeles.
So talk
Las
a little
Vegas,
bit about that. Where is it going to be broadcast, and how people can see it, and what can they expect?
I don't know. I don't know either.
Is this a secret?
You
tell us.
Exactly. A professional organization? I don't know it. One of our guests, John Donnelly from the Queen City Kids, organized. He usually organizes a show in Surrey, BC, which is basically Vancouver. I don't know why we always. It's beautiful Surrey, BC. We played it. I think we played a Canada Day there. What we played there, Fitzy?
2017, I think.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Yeah. So we did one then, and
which Corey flew in the day before you played in Toronto with Shania.
Yeah. We had two shows there, and we had a day off in between, and I flew the very next morning after the Shania show, played the show with you guys, and couldn't even help you guys tear everything down, and had to get right back to the airport and get back
That's
play a
right.
show with her the next night.
That's why I was confused, because Zach Throne was at that gig, now that I think about it. So Shane was probably
that's
still
right.
doing Japanese.
Yeah.
Shane was in Japan, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Cool. So
yeah.
We do.
we got a great show today.
Yes,
I'm
we
really
do.
excited.
It's the 10th one. We've been working up to the 10th one. Everything else has been,
Yeah.
opening act
Yeah.
for this particular artist.
We might have to stop doing the shows after this because it's going to be hard to go anywhere from this point.
Yeah.
Top of the mountain, baby. Top of the mountain. It's all
It's
downhill.
hitting the peak. It's hitting the peak.
I was nervous last week with Kim Mitchell, but this week
I
I'm
was
really
nervous because his lawyers got involved in the
Well,
first 5 minutes.
We have major celebrity in the house.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
No, I didn't
Shut down
try to
today,
do
are
anything
you?
fancy because
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with these digital lawsuits. Just so that everybody knows Kim was on board and we've sorted it all out. But Facebook is a whole other thing, so we're not gonna push the envelope.
Yeah. We just happened to play a few clips from some of his videos, and it alerted the Facebook police
It actually
to shut us down,
broadcasting
which was
in
the
all
most.
Canada. It went from
Oh
all
my
our
gosh.
viewers to only U.S. viewers. It just blacked everybody out, so it's kind of odd.
So fun.
Does like the algorithm catch it,
I
or
would
is there
assume
somebody
because,
policing
I'm
it,
sure
or
Kim's
like
management team has
shut
better
down
things to
back?
do than to sit around and just watch every possible podcast, But I mean, unless they're a
exactly,
big
yeah.
fan,
It must be just some sort
then
of,
to have the ability to shut it down that quickly, I mean, it has to be something. So it was Universal Music Group that I got the message
Who
from,
knows?
so I'm sure they have across the board.
So it was the man. It was
the man.
Faceless
It was the man.
Yeah.
But more importantly, now we get to kind of hang out. We finally get to break up the sausage party, which is
Yes.
It is. Yeah,
Which is a nice turn of events.
It's been
It's always nice to have a little estrogen in the room. I mean, more than the one that I'm doing in my menopause phase here. Anyway, look, why don't you introduce our
Corey,
guest?
take it away.
Corey.
All right. Well, today we have a very special guest. She is a Canadian legend. She's a international superstar. She's a singer-songwriter. She's a storyteller, and I say that.
She's loving this. Just pour it on. She's loving it, I can tell.
But the thing is, it's all true. Like,
It is.
if you go see one of her shows, her music is so fantastic, but her in-between song banter is just as good. Like,
love
it's
it.
such a great experience. She's an author, right? She's an actor. She's in a show right now that the title is Her Name,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure you all know who it is. She's also a podcast host. She's won 8 Juno Awards. I have such a big list right here. You can see I'm reading because I didn't want to forget anything. But if I don't stop now, it's going to be over.
And we're out of time
before
so,
we get
we're
started.
gonna-
I know, yeah.
She's received the Order of Canada. That's like getting knighted, right?
I know, that's the coolest.
She's had like 12 albums. Like, she works really hard. I don't know how she's even got time to be on this show with us, but
It really leads us to the question, what the hell is she doing hanging out with us? That's
yeah,
really...
definitely. This one slipped by her management, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. She must be bored.
Best of all, she's an animal lover and a vegan. Yay!
Yeah.
Everybody, please welcome to the show. Yay! Welcome.
Oh my gosh, Corey. That's very kind of you.
What did I miss?
No, nothing. I was just going, who the hell is he talking about? It's I've been around a while, so it's been great. My motto is don't be afraid to suck.
Yeah.
And I stepped into that, but it's just I do a lot of things, not really all that well, but I really like it. I like being in a whole bunch of different mediums, and I'm not worried about if I'm the best in the world or anything like that. I just really like creating things. And of course my baseline is always songwriting. I mean, before I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, and I think I just couldn't stay away from it as a kid. I don't know how I ended up here, honest to God. It's a comedy of errors.
But that's really important. I think it's really cool that you say that, because so many people have opportunities just kind of fall in their lap, and we kind of, like, I acted in some stuff back in the day. I used to date an actress, and I was always kind of like, when that kind of fell in my lap, I was kind of like, I'm not an actor. I don't want to do this. I'll make a fool of myself. But I had the same attitude, like, well, you kind of have to say yes to these things, even though you might fall flat on your face, but at least you've done it. But I mean, and that's not to say, I actually think your acting's fantastic. And I think it's got to be especially hard trying to play some version of yourself. I think that's really fascinating. So
I'm so glad I'm not her. I'm so glad I'm not her. Like, the writers bring me the stuff. I'm in the writing room the whole time. I'm not a writer, but I'm very involved in the storyboards and kind of what the character of Jann does, which is an aging singer-songwriter trying to find relevance, trying to figure out her relationships, and just failing miserably. She has no spatial idea of what's going on with other people around her. And sometimes I'm truly uncomfortable, but it's been such a joy doing the show. Second season starts in September, and then we're just writing the third season now. If someone had told me I'd be doing scripted comedy, I don't even know. I don't even know what I would think. But I'm having a blast, and people are actually watching it. So,
just to tie in here, in case anybody, because we get viewers on this podcast from all around the world. If anybody doesn't know, Jann has a half-an-hour sitcom on CTV, and it is titled Jann, and it's going to season number 2. Season 1, the season finale, actually broke some records in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, correct? It was millions of viewers, so the show's been...
I don't know too much about that, but we're hoping to be in an international situation, hopefully in the next 10 months.
Awesome. So
fingers crossed, but it's the more episodes that we film, the more we have to sell to a U.S. audience and to a U.K. audience. So we're really hopeful. We hope that it resonates for people not just in Canada, because it is kind of Canadian.
Yeah.
But I think very, very relatable. I mean, who doesn't hang their... Sorry, go ahead.
How does that work as far as like writing for you? Do you feel like that they follow you around and kind of get a feel for what you talk like? Are you somewhat ad-libbing, or is it kind of like putting words in Jann Arden's mouth that are supposed to be spoken by a character called Jann Arden? Just seems fascinating to me. Like, does it feel with things that you would normally say, or is it kind of more like... Because I guess it's a character.
It really isn't. It is a character, but I think Leah, who's one of the show, she developed the show with me. So there's her, Leah Gautier, and Jenica Harper, and they're so used to me. They've known me for a long time. Leah has known me for a long time, and so she knows that I have a very sardonic, kind of dark sense of humor, and I make suggestions all the time. But they really are clever about putting it together, and I don't even know how I memorize the words. It's the biggest nightmare for me. I work with a guy named Tom Carey because I'm memorizing 15 pages of script every day.
Wow.
And I never thought I could do it. I thought, am I going to have like some kind of a bean in my ear and Jesus will be speaking to me? And I've actually managed to get that part of my brain functioning. And it's very scary.
How do you do that?
Repetitive. And Tom, if you're out there, Tom, he's just beside me constantly going over it. I mean, it's like Mr. Kincaid in the can taking a poo, and he's talking to me underneath the stall. He's playing everybody else, and it's just it is literally repetitive. It's repetitive. And we filmed for about 6 weeks, and I can't do anything else but that. So I don't sing, I don't write, I don't read a book, I don't look at TV. It's all I do, and it's really exciting. I love it, but I'm so glad. Music seems so easy to me when I get back to it. I'm like, thank you, Jesus.
So when you say you consider yourself to be a songwriter primarily, are you involved in the writing of the show as well, or is that something that you just leave to...
Storylines.
Right,
so
okay.
when we sit in the writer's room, like right now, we're knocking out all the story outlines for the 8 episodes of season 3. And I'm heavily involved in that. Like I really have a sense of what, I want to do. And the girls we work together. It's very symbiotic. It's like being in a band. Like we're in a band.
And I love the plot tagline where you're trying to overcome your arch rival, Sarah McLachlan. Is there any truth to that in real life, or is that just a...
Sarah makes a guest appearance in season 2. Amazing. That is so epic. I don't know what to tell you. It's in the first episode, and if you don't tune in just for that, You are missing. There's going to be so many memes. There's going to be so many. She's amazing. She's very funny. She was such a good sport. She was a really good sport because we had her doing some stuff.
Wow.
And I can't wait for people to see it. It was supposed to air in March. COVID pushed it to May, and now COVID has pushed it to September. So it's been a real. I'm so disappointed that people haven't had a chance to see it yet.
Well, maybe everybody, because of stuff like this, maybe everybody can get caught up on season 1 and then
yes!
there you
Just
go.
watch
That's what
season 1 over and over.
we're all sitting at home anyway. We can
It's
all
funny.
watch
It's funny that the networks would decide to do that, because you'd think that you'd want to target an audience while most people are at home. I mean, I wonder what the reason is for the postponement.
It's advertising. It's advertising.
Yes,
so,
actually, yeah, you're right. It all comes down to.
So yeah, and the revenues are so down. Oh my God, my dog has been driving me bonkers. So
We want to see
now.
you.
It looks like you're on an episode of Cops.
Who's that in the tank top?
Oh my goodness!
Oh, there we
Hey,
go.
Mitty.
Oh,
So cute.
I love it.
there she is.
So cute. She's so cute.
When you're filming your show, does the camera crew come to you or you go to it? Like, where's the location? Do they actually come to you at home?
No, we have some stuff is sets,
Yeah.
but we shoot a lot on location. But I'm picked up by a driver at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
and they put you in hair and makeup, and then you go to whatever you're shooting that day. And we do something called block shooting. This is all new to me. And we basically shoot 8 episodes at the same time. So I could be doing 5 different episodes in a day.
Oh my God.
So I never know where I'm at in the story, what I'm supposed to be doing. So when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's what I was doing. That's where I'm coming from.
It all comes together.
And
Yeah.
that's in Calgary.
How do you even get yourself?
We shoot at west of Calgary. Around a town called Bragg Creek, there's a set out there that our production company has, and they have all kinds of buildings. And some of the stuff is shot in Calgary proper, but we've used colleges and restaurants, and we're really proud that Calgary is actually a character in the show.
Absolutely.
Because I said, I'm very interested in doing it, but my mom had Alzheimer's at the time, and I didn't want to go to Toronto for months. And I said, I'm up for trying it, but I need to shoot it at home.
Right.
And which meant Calgary, and I thought they'd shut me down. And they're like, okay, shouldn't be a problem. I'm like, oh my God, I might actually end up doing this.
Maybe it's cheaper in Calgary somehow. I mean, television in general or film or anything is all based on like how much money corners you can cut here and there. I don't know. Although I imagine the business in Vancouver and Toronto is probably up and running, so maybe. But Calgary's always had something going on there.
They've done a lot of shooting here. I think Heartland shot for years, north of 60.
Fargo shot there.
Yeah, Fargo. But
Yeah.
Calgary always is playing something else.
Yeah.
They're playing something else.
True, yeah.
So it's interesting to see it as a backdrop as itself. And people are really excited about seeing, oh my God, there's my house. There's where the Safeway is. And so that's been really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have any background in acting, or is this? I always wonder this because my comedian friends will suddenly land in a movie, and I go, "You're an actor now?" And I go, "Yeah, dude, I just kind of landed ass backwards in this thing." And I go, "It's so crazy to imagine," because I didn't have any acting background either. And you just kind of like, just say these words. And
I'm not an actor.
So, but
Yeah,
you're surrounded
I'm not
by,
an actor.
and you're surrounded by professional actors, I'm assuming, or.
Very professional.
Yeah.
Like people that just have these rap sheets that are amazing.
So was there any sort of tune-up that happens? Like any sort of like, hey, you got to do this. You just got to go in cold. That's amazing. Good for you.
Yeah.
Especially,
Literally everyone was so scared. They're like, we'd written the show, got millions of dollars to make this thing, the network and everything. And Leah said to me, she goes, I sure hope you can act. I'm like, me too.
Listen, if you bleep out your own swear words, we'll have to add them in later.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, gosh, sorry. Okay.
And we have the ability to change them to whatever we want. So it's
Yeah, that's true.
I just wanted to say about Kim Mitchell. I loved Kim Mitchell growing up so much. Might as well go for soda. And, let go of the line. I must have listened to Let Go of the Line.
Oh, yeah.
Laying on my parents' indoor-outdoor carpeting in the basement, and we didn't have headphones. We begged to get headphones. And my dad's like, you don't need any goddamn headphones. And I remember taking the speakers off the shelf and setting them on the floor and laying between them
Oh, nice.
to pretend that I had headphones on and just listening to it over and over again. I've never met him, but
He's the best.
really, such
guy.
great pop music.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Monster guitar player.
So speaking of music, we talked a bit about your TV show. What's happening with music these days?
I've been writing a lot, actually, in quarantine. Been writing with an old friend of mine, Russ Broom. Corey.
Yeah.
Russ says to say hi to you. He's an amazing musician, a wonderful guitar player, and we didn't speak for about 10 years. We worked together for 14 years, did a lot of music together, and we just sort of went different ways. And about a year and a half ago, we reconnected. Russell does all the music for the Jann show, so I asked him to get involved in that. But we've started writing like pop music again, so we've probably got 6 or 7 things in the last 8 or 9 weeks that are so good. I'm so happy with them. And I'm working on season 3, so I'm doing Zoom writing, which is not optimum for writing a comedy, but doing that. And I have another book coming out in October, which is still on track. It was supposed to, it's not been moved. And I'm actually next week going to record the audio version of that. So there's little things that are coming in. I actually have a speaking engagement. I don't know how it's going to work, but it's a Zoom speaking thing for like 800 people. And I'm going to sing a couple of songs and do my normal speech that I do.
Do you want to practice here?
I would. 420 years ago.
That's the new Bill and Ted movie.
Went over, yeah. So, but for the most part, I just walk in the dog. I got a giant garden here. I have quite a bit of land where I am.
That's a perfect segue. I want to hear about because it looks like you live in the middle of nowhere. Like it looks, I mean, anybody who's seen the foothills of Banff National Park, the Rocky Mountains, it's just gorgeous. And
I'll just show you what I'm looking at.
Yes, please.
I can only imagine.
My God.
It looks to me like is it Bears Paw area? Jan?
It's called Rocky View County. I would call it almost on the verge of a place called Springbank.
Okay, so
but I'm 40 minutes west of Calgary, and I've pretty much lived out here my whole life. I grew up out here. My dad moved us out here in 1970.
Great.
And I've really literally been on the road the last 28 years. This is the longest I've been home in a place for 25 years.
Wow.
Because I still travel 250 days a year. The show keeps me at home for 6 weeks.
That's awesome.
So that was another thing. I mean, I don't really get to enjoy it, but I am going to sleep in my own bed.
Sure.
But I didn't realize how profoundly tired I was until COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I love working, and I am, excuse me, I have time restrictions. I'm 58. And as long as I keep singing well, I'll keep doing it. But, really, I've got a decade, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There seems to be no time limit anymore. It's a constant curiosity watching artists get older, The fact that 70 seems like, 70, you can still keep playing when you're 70. Like, wow. What
I hope I'm not. I really don't. But the writing I can still continue to do. But as soon as I'm not singing well, like I'm not changing keys, I'm not going to drop. Whenever I've gone to see people that I love to see, I'm just like, oh, God, I can't.
Right.
Sometimes just changing keys changes the entire game of a song. It just loses everything.
Oh, my God. Exactly right.
And they seem awkward. They're like, the backup singers take the high notes, and the audience is nervous. They're like, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. And,
oh, no. Yeah.
And it's weird. So I will bow out like a lady when we get to that. But I think I'm singing better now than I ever have in my life. I'm almost at that place where I'm just coming over the mountain. I know my voice so well, and I write for myself. And I don't think I did that in my 20s and 30s. Even in my 30s, I wasn't writing for myself in a way that benefited my voice. Now I know. I'm like, nope, not going there, not going there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taken me my entire career to learn where my sweet spot is and where I want to stay.
So how far away are you from where you grew up? Because I'm always fascinated because you didn't say I'm going to go move to Hollywood or move.
I'm 20 minutes from where I grew up.
That's amazing.
Did you ever live in Vancouver or anywhere like that?
I was in Vancouver in 1985, 86. I was busking on the streets.
Yeah.
I hammered the whole time. I was really promiscuous. I didn't have any sense of myself, and I didn't think anyone like me that looked like me could have a chance in music, but I didn't know what to do. I had dropped out of college. I was taking theater arts.
Wow.
And I got slugged one day and knocked out playing guitar in Gastown, and then I ended up on a salmon trawler for a month, and then I came home to Calgary, and every time I tried to get away from music, something happened and I was back in the game. I didn't sign my record deal with A&M. I signed in Los Angeles, and I was just about to turn 30. So it was very late in life for me, and I don't think it's a story that you would hear now. I remember the guy that signed me, his name's Alan Reed, and he actually runs the Juno Awards in Calgary now. So
I know Alan. Yeah.
I remember when I was signing, he asked me how old I was. He'd never asked me before, and I said I'm gonna be 30 next month. And he looked at me like, I don't know how old he thought I was, but there was a very big pause.
Wow.
But so I was a fully developed person at that point in the game.
So
but
awesome.
I'm very grateful.
We should go back actually and talk about, like, I'm always very curious because a lot of us in the big rock world, we played some clubs and had bottles thrown at us, and then somebody saw us and we got a deal. So I'm always fascinated by. So you basically you're kind of like got an acoustic guitar and just play and sing songs.
Yeah, I was in bars a lot. I was in really bad rock bands all through northern British Columbia and Alberta, and I did that from the time I was 18 to right up until 30. A guy named Neil McGonigal had seen me singing in a duo, and he probably followed me around for a year. Once in a while when I was with David playing piano, jazz, blues in these little clubs, hammered. I was drunk the entire time.
That word keeps coming up.
It's true. I was a big drinker. And I once in a while would put one of my songs in. I would grab my guitar and I would play a song, and Neil approached me, it was 8 or 10 months after he started following me around, and he just said, I'd really like to work with you. I think you could get a record deal. So I think I was about 25 years old, and I just thought, okay. And anyway, I really didn't have a big break. I was turned down by everybody multiple times. My music was too personal. It was too depressing. Long story short, Alan Reed, who I mentioned, he had been given a cassette by a guy named Doug Chappelle. I know I'm dropping all these names that mean nothing to anybody, but Doug ran Virgin for years in Canada. Virgin Records was a very successful, huge label.
Yeah.
And anyways, Doug had got my cassette, and he just didn't know what to do with it. So he gave it to Alan Reed, and he said, I don't know what to do with her. She's pretty good. It's kind of folky. Alan took it. He put it in his car, listened to it a few times, and he phoned us the next day and turned us down. And I was devastated. I just thought that had been probably 20 rejections, 25 rejections, everybody. And anyway, the next day, Alan's fiance broke up with him and ended their relationship. He was 26 years old. He was looking to sign Nirvana. It was 1992. Pearl Jam was happening, the whole West Coast music scene. And here's me, like, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Anyway, he took some time off, and when he got back into his car, my cassette was still in the deck. And when he started it up, a song came on called I Just Don't Love You Anymore. And it was just me playing my guitar. And Alan said, I understood what you did. And he phoned Neil back the next day, and he said, I don't know if Jan will ever sell a record, but I'm going to sign her, and I've been with them now for 28 years.
Whoa,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So you talk about your music
every
being that
story's different.
you talk about your music being that personal. Is there one that stands out overall that you would consider to be the closest to your heart, or is there just kind of something from your perspective that stands out over that career?
Well, I mean, certainly I think one of the biggest surprises to me, that was one of the biggest songs that I have to this day, is a song called Good Mother.
Yeah, great song.
And it was about my parents, and I didn't particularly even think it had a chorus. I just was like, where's the chorus? Every time I play that song, I'm like, where is the chorus in this song? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just still to this day get so many messages about that song. And it was just about the color of my hair and, you know, having a house and a car. And it was all these kind of benign things. And I did not think it would hit the way it did. It's a really versatile song. It's great for funerals and weddings, which I'm very proud of.
Wow, yeah.
And,
some would consider the same thing.
You can get married, and then if you die, yes, exactly.
So how does that, what was the kind of stuff informing you as a young person when it came to like thinking about acoustic guitar? Is that more like the Neil Young type stuff, or what kind of music was kind of like making you kind of...
I was the other end of the pool. My older brother was Neil Young and you know, all these guys, but I was James Taylor, Janis Ian, Carly Simon, ABBA, Olivia Newton-John, Donna Summer. I wasn't really a singer-songwriter. I really loved pop music. ABBA was huge for me.
Oh yeah,
and
me too.
You know, my mom had an old guitar in the basement, and literally from, you know, I started playing that when I was about 11 years old, and I was writing songs a month later. And by the time I was 18, I'd written 400 songs that were terrible. And they were just terrible, you know. But I just was stuck on it. I just loved it. And I just really enjoyed it. It was like having a crush on something. But I kept it a secret, too. I didn't even tell my family I played guitar or sang until I was 18.
Wow.
So every time someone came around, I hit it. Because I was a funny kid, right? I was funny.
So that ties into a... Sorry, Shane. It ties into a question we have online because somebody was asking. He said, did you grow up knowing that you would be a writer, a singer, and be sharing your story like you are today? What was the alternative path had you not done that?
Well, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a school teacher. That's what I had always envisioned myself being. When I was in the basement, I used to pretend to be a teacher. And, you know, I think even singing was very strange to me because I was writing all these songs, and I think I learned to sing by default because I'm thinking, well, how does a person get someone to sing their songs? Mm-hmm. So I think I was quite terrible when I started, and I just mimicked everything I heard, like Bette Midler and Cher, and I sounded more like Olivia Newton-John than Olivia Newton-John. And then a guy that I worked with, you know, years later, his name was David Hart, and he was quite a bit older than me, but he then introduced me to Ella Fitzgerald and Aretha Franklin and Nancy Wilson and the Mills Brothers and Tom Waits. I mean, I got so heavily into Tom Waits, so I swung that way, and that really affected my songwriting. So I had the pop sensibility. Mm-hmm. And then I really wanted to write authentic, real things, you know, that were about not getting it right. It was always love in some form or another. Yeah. But when I met David and played in that duo with him before I got my record deal, that was a real game changer in how I approach songwriting.
So how long was it before you actually played with a drummer? How old were you when that happened? Like after the album?
No, it was long before. I was in the bars from
the bar circuit,
19 to 29, so for 10 years. Probably the time I was about 19, 20. Okay. I've just played in full bands. Sure. Really terrible bands. There was one called Executive Suite. There was one called Factor 4. I mean, I did, you know, Jethro Tull and Nazareth songs. And I mean, we were playing way up north, and we had to play hard rock. So once in a while I'd throw in a Sheena Easton, but
same as us. Shane, you're from Innisfail, Alberta. How did you and Jan not be crossing?
Oh, right, because we had to have played a lot of the same places. I'm from Innisfail, Alberta.
My brother's in jail there.
Oh, wow.
At the pen?
In Innisfail?
Well, he's in Bowden. He's actually been in jail for 27 years. 27
That's such
years.
a crazy.
Oh my God.
But Innisfail, so I'm in Innisfail like a lot, going up there to see him.
Yeah, one of my best friends works there. He's a guard, Mike.
Wow.
I'll run it by my brother. Maybe they know each other.
There you go.
Dude.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing though. Yeah.
So what's the new book about that you got coming out?
Well, If I Knew Then, and it's quite funny. It's just about getting older and understanding the power and the wisdom in just time. I think especially for women, I'm actually in an industry where, you suddenly find yourself very marginalized when you're not able to bear children, or if you're not thought of as a sexual being, or that's not your appeal, when you're just dealing with your intellect and your wisdom. It's very difficult to kind of navigate that. And so I wanted to write something kind of funny about it, and just to cheer people on. 50-ish is not at all what it seemed to me when I was a kid. When my mom was 50, she seemed 110.
Oh, 100%.
And like you said, it's very different now. The optics are very different on aging, and I do want to cheer people on. I don't want them to think that they can't start something completely new at 50 years old. Julia Childs comes to mind. Started her food career at 50 years old.
Yeah, right.
When you think about someone who was an iconic, when you think about the culinary world, Julia Child she spearheaded what the Food Network is now.
Absolutely, yeah.
And she was 50. So I don't want people to think that they have to go grab a golf set. Golf
I know. And just start dying.
So, I started the TV show. I started working on it at 54.
Amazing.
53, we started developing it. And, I'm hoping to do another 4 seasons after this. I'd like to, 6 or 7 seasons.
Well, based on everything that you're saying here, you kind of had a 2-in-1, because it looks like 2 of your dreams came true, because you are teaching a lot, and people that are watching, you have the ability to teach a lot larger audience. Somebody was asking, due to the fact that you have such a social media presence and such just a household presence, how do you deal with any of the negative comments? How do you deal with the negativity that comes along with being such a presence online or on TV or in person? Is that something that you just kind of...
I don't deal with it a lot. I've certainly had my share. I've certainly found that I've stepped into a realm where it'll bite me back. But I block a lot of people. I think I'm not a muter. I don't do it. There's no 3 chances. I block instantly. Some people would disagree with that. I don't even accept vitriol between people. Like if there's somebody going after somebody else that's on my page, I'm like, why am I seeing this?
Absolutely.
So it's gone. And as we all know, the social media, there's very different trains of thought. Facebook is its own strange fake news, weird article kind of thing. But it does have redeeming qualities, but it can be quite vicious and quite gossipy. Yep. Twitter is just this bang, 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 stab to hurt, shoot to kill kind of thing. But it also rallies people. It tells them, it gives us this instant information of what's happening. Instagram is the kindest of the 3. It's people are genuinely well behaved. They don't get too mean. They're usually pretty supportive, but I don't tolerate much of it. I instantly just get rid of it, and I'll bite back too.
Good for you.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I was leading towards that, because it doesn't seem like you're the kind of person that would take a step back, especially when it comes to a good cause or to support, the right decision. So.
Yeah, I take a lot of flack. Corey would know this, just from animal welfare. It's not my entire feed, but I try and find balance with animal advocacy. I've been vegan for 2 years. I didn't eat red meat for almost 15. I was with someone for a decade that didn't eat meat, so I didn't eat meat, and I kind of just morphed into that. And then I thought, why am I eating chicken and fish? Like, why aren't I being more verbal about it? Because I knew if I rolled up my sleeve to get into that arena that I needed to educate myself. But it's getting there. I think, I pick my battles, surely, but I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the fact that a lot of people say, listen, I'm doing 2 plant-based meals a week because of you. They're like, oh my gosh, if Jan's doing this, and, people are stepping up and signing petitions for me.
That's amazing.
It's interesting work, and I'm glad to do it. I don't want to just be complacent. And we've learned that this last month.
Exactly.
Yes,
do you have animals on your property, by the way?
No, it's because I travel so much. I'd love to. I would love to have animals. I used to have a couple of big farm dogs that were my parents, but they're all gone now. The parents are gone. My last big dog I put down in June of last year. And but I'd love to get another big dog, and I think it's doable. Like I think the way I travel now, I could probably get the big dog in there somehow and get another rescue. But Mitty's almost 12, so
wow.
But she can come wherever I go. Yeah, I mean, a dream. I'd love to have animals here. I'd love to have a couple of horses. Yeah, for sure. I've definitely got
and a topic that touches all of our hearts, I'm sure, here. And let's not everybody just take a couple of seconds back to acknowledge the fact that you said rescue, your favorite breed being rescue. That's obviously the best way to go about it, correct?
Yes.
The only way to go. Oh, absolutely.
So anybody watching out there that's considering, that's the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, COVID has been really bad and really great. I always think that good things come out of bad things, but rescues have literally been emptied out with people taking pets. I mean, yes, it'll happen again, and there's probably going to be some returns because people are knuckleheads. I had them but hopefully they'll fall in love with the dogs that they have, and that won't be the case. The overwhelming thing that happens. So, yeah, people are the internet has been magical for animal welfare. It's been magical for them to see where they get their proteins from and how it works and what it's doing to the planet. COVID's been magical that way. It has shone a light on a lot of issues.
It has.
So, it's going to be very cool to see how we go forward from this and how people are going to position themselves. I want to be on the right side of history. I just do.
Yeah. We all do. I think it's
a lot of people when they go vegan, they say the only bad thing about it was that they resent not doing it sooner. Would you also say you would fall in that category?
Very much so. And I don't know why. I was raised, in Innisfail, and we were in cattle country,
Yeah, absolutely.
And my mom, we had beef. I'm going to say 4 or 5 times a week, and when it wasn't beef, it was pork.
I had
chicken was, oh my God, if we have to have a chicken, we will. But I do resent that. I used to buy packages of Black Forest ham. I don't know why the disconnect was there. I don't know what to blame it on, a busy life or this or that. And I loved pets. We had rabbits, we had geese growing up, we had birds, we always had dogs. My mom was the kindest person, but they hadn't made the connection. But my mom, as she got older, she would not eat meat anymore. And when she started getting Alzheimer's, she's like, I'm not eating that.
Oh, wow.
And, so then I just started really going after it. It's a learning curve. And I didn't want to make myself, unwell, but it's the easiest thing. It's easier than eating meat. It's just easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat. Corey and I are both in that.
Good for you. I mean, Corey has always been very inspiring to me. His social media presence and it just was wonderful of the way people approach it. I don't think you can be really maniacal about that kind of advocacy. I don't want to turn people off. I don't want to infuriate people. What I want to do is encourage them to do some more plants. And I really believe they'll get there on their own because it's happening now.
Yeah.
5, 6-year-old kids, because of the internet now, are going, I'm not eating that.
Yeah.
I'm not eating bacon because that bacon was, Wilbur the pig. And when you make that connection as a young person, the parents cannot force their kid to eat a drumstick.
No, not at all. Yeah.
No, when they're like, I want pasta, Mommy. I don't want that. I want tomatoes and they've come a long way, man. Vegan food.
Well, and with the prices of beef in Canada nowadays, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that there are alternatives. But this leads me to believe, and I mean, we don't like to make this a too much of a political show, but sometimes I often wonder because I mean, I admit I'm not vegetarian or vegan at this time. I know, right? But I'm sure there's other on this panel, and not because, but I'm an animal lover, and I know that I definitely respect the fact that people say that when you say you love animals, the idea, the ideology is just that cats, dogs, household pets, but it's not the case. But how is it that you being in Canada and live in Canada, because this is what I often wonder, is that when you live somewhere where you can grow vegetables and have a garden year round, et cetera, that makes it a little bit easier. How do you maintain that lifestyle living in Canada and, you know, being in winter climate when some of that stuff is not always accessible? Corey, well, you can chime in on this too. I mean, I don't know. I'm just
contrary to what you might think, I mean, we're living in a world now that, you know, obviously I don't live by the 100-mile rule. I don't have a greenhouse. So, yes, I'm eating produce from Mexico. I'm eating produce from South America. I'm eating a lot of produce from California. I'm about to start eating a lot of stuff from British Columbia. I'll have my own garden. I've already started kind of eating the greens and things that are coming up. That's pretty quick. And but I will have enough root vegetables and things like that from my garden here to last me until March of next year. Easy.
Wow.
And let's face it, the things that people consider proteins are meat, which starts decaying immediately upon being killed. And the plant-based version is beans, and beans will last forever.
Yeah. Well, you know, we saw here in Canada when we were about to go into lockdown, they gave everyone 4 or 5 days to kind of acclimate and get their groceries and realize that, you know, you're going to be doing this for 30 days at least. Yeah. The beans were gone. So people knew.
Yeah, they know.
They knew once the meat was gone, it was just like every bean, every legume, every piece of pasta, rice. Of course, the flour went here as I know it went in the States. People realized, and I think what happened too, another magical thing, the home meals started being made. And people didn't have access to chicken 4 days a week or fish or this or that. They were making really great meals with beans, with pastas, with lentils, vegetables, you know, things that we were still getting. But there's nothing in Canada we can't get. I mean, we're getting really exotic fruit. There's stuff that flies in from Hawaii, you know, every second day. Yeah. I don't think I've ever not been able to get an avocado in this country. And we don't fucking grow avocados in Canada.
Right.
But there's no excuse for it really, but honest to God, if even that one meal a week, you're doing your body a favor and you're doing the planet a favor. So, and protein, like the cheeses, vegan cheeses are way better than they were. Like a year ago, they were hockey pucks. And now it's coming around that, you know, even these Beyond Meat, all these meat substitutes, they're really good.
They are, yeah.
So,
and let's face it, I think almost everybody on this planet is vegan at heart. Nobody wants to see an animal suffer. Nobody wants to kill their own food, right? But if we put it behind a wall and let somebody else do it, then it's fine. But so the fact that nobody wants to see that happen to animals already means that we're vegan at heart, but we just have to align our actions with our morals.
Yeah. It's you know, the end game is that, you know, an animal does die, and there's too many of us now. I think, you know, people talk about human beings being carnivores, and they talk about we've always eaten meat and our brains got bigger when we ate meat. And I'm not disputing any of those things, you know, going back 100,000 years. People worked very hard for their proteins. They often didn't have a protein for 6 months because they couldn't catch it, they couldn't kill it. They were exhausted from hunting for 2 weeks. And further to that, there was a ritual, there was a kindness, there was a beautiful appreciation of the animal. And everything was used, their hooves, their sinews for their clothes. It was not what we're seeing now. You know, for example, a lot of slaughterhouses took a hit with COVID-19 because of the unsanitary conditions, you know, people working shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. You have to understand, processing 4,500 animals a day, large mammals that are funneling in, means you're killing one every 3 seconds. And, you know, these guys that stand in these lines, there's no ritual. And I think that's what's missing. So when you buy your package of pork chops, I understand that, and I'm not admonishing people for what they eat. I get it. I lived that way for 55 years. But when you make the connection, then you feel the fight. You feel the fight in your heart. Yeah. It starts tugging at you, and you're like, I don't need that. Yeah. You know, I have. But that's what I'm talking about, is the ritual, the gratitude. You know, when people killed something, they would get together and pray over this animal, pray for its soul. You cannot do that when you're feeding 5 or 6 billion people animal proteins. There's no time.
So going back, and we're gonna segue off of this because I didn't want to miss a story that Brent you were talking about when we were discussing what to talk about. Beans being a huge factor in the diet, also known worldwide as the magical fruit. Brent, didn't you have a good story that you wanted to ask a question on?
Oh my goodness!
I was hoping we would talk about farting at some point.
It's about to come up.
But here's the thing. So, Jan, check this out. See this? So I saw you in, I guess it says December 1st. So I'm guessing 95. Winnipeg.
He kept it the whole time in his wallet.
So
next to the condom, there's a little circle.
I was just at my parents' in Winnipeg, and I found this amongst a bunch of stuff. And I thought, this is so amazing that I found an old backstage pass that I still had. And we were going to talk this week. So, but it reminded me of a story that you told that night. And it just kind of, if you want to, I mean, I thought it was one of the, it's still stuck with me today, but you did tell a little bit of an Anne Murray story, who is, of course, an iconic Canadian singer as well. But you had a little story you told in front of the entire audience that night at the concert. I thought, well, maybe Jan, I don't know if it's a good story, but it had something to do with you two in the studio. And you know where I'm going with this?
I think I do. I don't even know if I want to tell that story. But I would like to hear your version of it. But please, go ahead.
I remember, because it was such an awesome concert, and then you kind of lightheartedly told a story about, one of your heroes, and you guys were in the studio together, right, in the vocal booth or something. Yeah. Somehow there was some sort of passing of gas that
yes there was
yes there was
you know when you pass gas with Anne Murray, there's no coming back from that. But singing sometimes it causes a bit of pressure, especially when you're trying hard. Oh my Lord, Anne is she's amazing. She's got a birthday coming up the 20th of this month. She'll be 75.
Wow.
But she was one of my heroes growing up for sure.
Oh yeah.
There was a great, I know you guys sang together too. I think maybe in '96 you guys did something that I remember seeing live, and it was, she was singing your song and you guys sang together with a bunch of other singers doing the harmony. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah. It was one of those moments where you just are in disbelief.
Oh.
And singing, I got a chance to sing a song called "On Love with Jackson Browne."
Cool.
On the Living Under June record, and I just, guys, to this day, I just can't even believe that, because Running on Empty was one of those records that I was lying on the floor between the speakers, and he was such a great guy, and he just was so handsome.
Yeah,
I just remember being in the studio in Santa Monica, and I'm thinking, why am I even here? What am I doing here? And he just was like a surfer. He's just a beautiful looking man. He still is. Yeah. He's 72 or 71 now, and he's really looked after himself. And but yeah, just so many great moments.
What about These Are the Days record, which I've been kind of jonesing on the last little while, and knowing that Bob Rock produced, he did that record, right?
Yes.
So we all love Rock. And
I've done 3 records with him now, and he is These Are the Days. We wrote a lot of that record together.
Yeah.
And he'd have these great riffs, and we just sat in the studio at Bryan Adams, the Warehouse. You guys have all been there.
Yeah.
And I just would scribble lyrics down and melody in the corner, and he just had me sing it on the spot, and it was a really great experience. He's a monster talent. He's a very eccentric man. We'd work for 20 minutes, and then he stops and he would tell you a story about Bob Seger that would just blow the hair off your nipples. And then he'd work again, but we were all just sitting there just listening to this epic story about Bob Seger. And then he had so many stories about people. So he'd work for a little while, and then he likes to tell a story, and I just wish I could record him telling all this stuff, but he's a very kind, very talented man, and sometimes I don't think he gets the attention that he deserves, because he's not flashy, he doesn't like the public eye much. But he's the only producer. Yes, he is. He's the only producer I've ever worked with that, he says, I'll be back in 15 minutes. I'm going to go grab a coffee. He comes back 3 hours later with 4 Japanese fashion magazines and a new pair of handmade boots. You're like, where have you been? And then you just work again.
But so if you're going to do a record with Bob Rock and it's you and him, but who rounds out a record? Like, instrumentation wise? Because when I saw your band, I've seen you several times live, but I know you've had like Pat Stewart play with you, Keith Scott, and you've always
Alison Cornell, Corey, she's been out with me.
So Alison was the first fiddler on the Shania.
Norm Fisher on bass, but Alison, I've worked with her for the better part of 20 years, but just worked with some great drummers over the year. I remember having a band together, and Kenny Aronoff was playing drums, and I forget who was on bass, but just looking around me, I've always been so grateful to work with really good players. Yeah. Gary Craig and Russ Broom, who's very, very underestimated. But he wants to stay home and produce records. He doesn't want to be on the road,
Right.
But yeah, it's just great bands playing music.
We're all unemployed, except we all like playing together. So if you ever want to have Toque as your backing band, maybe.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
I'm so down with that. We should do We Are the World, maybe.
There you go. Or Tears Are Not Enough.
Oh, we want Tears Are Not Enough. Come on.
Tears are not enough.
I think that was a David Foster song, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Did you write that?
That was their Ethiopian song, yeah.
I don't know I was supposed to be on the road until the end of this month, but it looks like they're starting to plug things in April, May, June next year, so we'll see what that looks like. I know there's some people running around doing concerts at drive-ins, and people are there with their cars and kind of doing stuff like that. I'm grateful for the time. Yeah. I'm just gonna sit back and try and take in the lessons and think about what kind of person I want to be going forward. And I'm actually really relieved that stage is not my life. My happiness is not contingent on constant adulation. I'm out here by myself in the trees. I've been single for 4 years, which is the best thing that ever happened to me, because I wasn't single for 30 years. I just went from one to the next and so this is just, I think I'm just coming out of this fog. So I'm grateful for this time. I think it's a really special time in history to reevaluate what, I'm not what I do. I'm more, I know I don't want to sound too esoteric, but I'm not what I do. And I know there's a lot of people with very big narcissistic egos that are hating this because they can't be in front of people and they have nowhere to wear their clothes and nowhere to get that fuel.
Yeah. And, well, that's what Instagram's for, I suppose.
Yeah. For some people, that's just not it. We'll see what happens. Just not enough, they're opening up stuff now, and like you said, in your the preamble before I came on, when I was in the green room.
Oh, you listened to that?
You guys were.
I didn't think anybody listened.
Yeah, of course. You guys were talking about having instrumental shows, but they wouldn't allow singing. What? Because you're spitting on
the
people?
Ontario government has said that there's no dancing or singing in any restaurants or clubs.
It really is very footloose, isn't it?
Super footloose.
Yeah, it's
save
some
us, Kevin
kinda...
Bacon.
Yeah, save us, Kevin Bacon.
Well, what do you guys think? Do you think we'll be out in front of people like next year early?
I think the fascinating thing to me is that actually, I remember saying to a friend of mine, I go, dude, there's punk rock clubs that'll be like, just don't even care. They'll just start booking shows. And I've got friends in Nashville, and on Facebook he's posting a picture of, or maybe some video, I can't remember what it was, of just a gig, and I go, oh, this must be from last year, and I go, no, it's like 3 days ago. So there, so if you are booking, and Fremont Street here, I'm in Vegas, Fremont Street, the whole outdoor thing they have there.
Yes.
There's like 4 stages, so fans can play and entertain people. And
right now?
Well, currently there's no bands playing, but my friend was there the other night, and he said it's as if nothing is wrong. It's people are out. It's Fremont Street in Las Vegas, and everybody's just hanging out. And I'm like, oh wow.
Well, I guess we'll see.
Well, let's not forget, just like we talked about, there's a shit ton of bands that are not affected by the 50 capacity rule at all. I mean,
well, that's
Yeah.
true too. Yeah,
that's business as usual for a lot of these guys, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so,
that's
Yeah.
fine.
but
Well, it's a weird thing to consider because there's been talk about like, oh, then we'll take Rogers Arena and sell like a third of the tickets and space every day. I go, that doesn't financially work for anybody. The vendors
No.
or like the band, the crew, that's not a thing. And I go, it's just basically on hold until, that level. I was just talking. I was at the studio the other day, and big groups like Slipknot and Five Finger Death Punch. Friends of mine kind of flow in and out of these bands, and like none of them can tour because they only play hockey arenas or stadiums. And so anybody at that level is all, but it's sort of more like you can't stop people, I suppose, once they decide there's people out anyway on these, like on Main Street or Broadway and in Nashville or Fremont in Vegas, put a band up there, I guess. What difference does it make at this point? So I think it's going to happen quicker than we think, unless there's a giant second wave that shuts, that all down too. We'll see.
It seems to vary country to country too of how people are doing.
Yeah.
I know in Canada, even provincially, it's so different in the East. Like the Maritimes have done incredibly well. Sometimes they have like 1 or 2 cases and no deaths. And, but I think we've done pretty good in Canada as far as it goes. But, there's some places that are just in the middle of it now. They're just swinging the bat hard.
Sure.
Their hospitals are overwhelmed. Like when you look at South America, what's happening in Brazil and Argentina. And, they're kind of where Italy was 6 weeks ago.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, they're having a second wave in China now. They're trying to put the hammer down and get that back on. But, vaccine.
if only somebody
we
would
need
have
a
warned
vaccine.
us.
We need.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, there's
I
some,
think the world's been warning us for a
know.
while. The
That's
MERS,
true,
the
too,
SARS,
Yeah.
these respiratory things. And the thing of it is really Russian roulette because we don't know if we are going to be one of the people that has relatively no symptoms or that if we're one of the people that ends up in ICU in a matter of hours. So I think that's the scary part of this disease.
That's the crazy thing about it is how hidden it can be. And, and I feel fine, and you go out and you infect some old lady and she dies. It's like it's a horrible thing to consider, but that's clearly what they're trying to tell us. So.
Yeah. No, I never thought I'd live to see anything like this, but
No.
like I said, I think there's some really amazing things coming out of it. I think the BIPOC Black Lives Matter movement, it was the veneer finally came off of this model of how we've been going about our lives, certainly in North America and Europe, of ignorance and complacency and silence. And I'm glad to see it happen. I hope we never go back. People are like,
And you have to wonder if the actual isolation or the quarantine itself in some way affected just this sort of universal
absolutely,
awareness of it all. You know what I mean?
absolutely,
And not to take away from all the
Absolutely.
real important events and all the real awarenesses that have come out across the globe. Number one in our books being Toque Talk. So we have to talk a little bit about this band. Are you familiar with?
No, we don't.
No,
I don't want
because
to talk about that. I don't want to talk about
I
Jann
know,
Arden.
but I want to get.
No, I don't know much about Toque Talk. When Corey approached me about Toque Talk, I was like, I don't know if we're
She's
going to
like,
talk
what the hell
about
is
Who are
cats.
these guys? Who are these guys? Yeah.
I'm just like, it's Corey. I'm in.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's
That's the best part of
fantastic.
it,
But
actually.
if you haven't already checked it out, these guys do fantastic covers and, of course, their own songs, but cover a lot of Canadian rock music across the board.
Old school
and
Canadian.
if you haven't, if
Yes.
you haven't had the chance, we talked earlier about the ability to still sing in, without changing keys. Todd has this, I don't know, whatever, fountain of youth at home that allows him to maintain the ability to do all of these songs and do them fantastic. So,
There you go.
we had Darby Mills on a couple of weeks ago, and Darby!
And
She sang on the last Toque record, and of course these guys did a cover of Alanis Morissette. So my question to you was that if you were to pick a song out of your library that Toque
For us to
would
play.
play, where do you think, or what do you think that would be?
I think it would be, oh my God, I don't even know. I'm Not Your Lover off my very first record. It's like
Okay.
a bluesy 4 on the floor, super awesome song to sing. You'll have a great time with it. I'm not your lover.
Because there's very few male singers in the world that can actually sing female leads and do it justice. Todd Kearns being probably the top of the list.
Todd, I have no doubt in my heart and mind. None whatsoever.
Thank you. Well, I hope I don't ruin your song. It's basically every time we
ruin my songs. No. People normally just lay down when they come to my shows, you know. So I don't know.
So on top of that, though, looking back on the Canadian rock, a friend of mine pointed out to me one day. He goes, "You realize that the music that you're covering is predominantly like a 5-year span because all of us are about the same age." And we all grew up in Canada and in Canada, you don't really differentiate between that's Canadian, that's American, that's British.
No.
It's just all music, you know?
Yes.
So to us, like covering stuff like Loverboy or April Wine, and any of the obvious crossover groups, but there's quite a few like deep cut type things. Is there any groups from back in the day like that you would say you guys should be doing this song or that band or something like that? I'd be very curious because Alberta has a totally different perspective too.
Listen, I keep thinking of Jensen Interceptor.
Oh my God!
Such a tiny thing.
I just
you
said
got
that
the
name
world
today.
on your shoulders, working and loving, you struggle every day.
Wow,
That's
worth the price
amazing.
of admission right
That's
there.
right.
To hear you
Jensen Interceptor. Like
a good
I
one.
saw them in the bars. They just were killing
Where were
it.
they from? Where was Jensen?
Edmonton.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I think they became the Models or something like that afterwards. Do you remember the band The Models?
Yeah,
I
Yes,
do,
I
yeah.
saw the models. I saw the models open for Pat Benatar.
Wow.
Oh, no
Yeah,
way.
there you go.
My first concert of all time was Kiss with Pat Benatar opening for them
Whoa.
in 1976.
So that
Whoa.
tour that tour what tour would that have
I
been?
lived.
That's like Destroyer.
76.
It would have been right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I was 15. It was
Right.
crazy.
Pat
What's it,
Benatar
50,
was so badass. Like her.
She's
Neil,
still
her
great.
Yeah, she's still amazing. Yeah, you're
You
right.
still and Hollywood. Did you do any songs from the woman
Toronto?
Hollywood that was in Toronto?
Yeah, we did.
She was supposed to be on the show with you today, to be honest.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love her.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to interrupt and just say I'm supposed to say hi to you from Hollywoods because she was supposed to be on the show today, and then for whatever reason we couldn't get our schedules all lined up, so she wasn't here.
Another one. He's-
I'm a massive fan of hers, and I listen
She's
to
such
her
a great singer, right?
ad nauseum. You know, she was very right up there with Ann Wilson for me. I mean, Holly has her range, and they had some great songs.
Oh, yeah.
Toronto had some great songs.
They did.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
I
can-
don't know.
We covered Enough Is Enough from their Head On album on one of our
I believe that means
Yeah, they wrote great
approval.
songs. We've always talked about how the
Why
Love
she-
song, or no, what about Love went on to be a giant hit for
Heart.
Yes,
What about love?
as written by Toronto. Yeah.
Wow, there was such great music coming out of Canada. I don't know, such a great history of singer-songwriters here, but there were some really great rock bands too.
Yeah. So we have to do Jensen Interception. Put that on the list.
Interceptor.
Interceptor, sorry.
Yeah.
I always screw that up. And so if you think of anything else, let us know. We'll try and put that on the list. We actually talked the other day. Corey brought up the idea of doing because somebody brought up like Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, and Murray. There's so many like you say the sort of folk oriented type groups, and you go, well, that's a whole other thing. Maybe we should do like an EP of
Seasons in the Sun.
Ooh, yeah.
Terry
That's-
Jacks.
Terry Jacks.
That's a good one.
Seasons
That's
in
a
the
great
Sun.
Great song.
Just got to do a Toque Unplugged album. Storytellers.
Toque Unplugged.
Storytellers. Yeah.
one.
Untoothed.
Yeah, Untoothed.
I would line up for that.
Definitely Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah.
Gordon Lightfoot, of course. Yeah.
And probably A Foot in Cold Water could be tapped into as well.
I just listened to that the other day too.
Wow.
In the morning
Some
light.
Dan Hill in there. We'll get some Dan Hill.
Dan Hill. Yeah, there you go.
I love
I
that.
was playing the Winnipeg Folk Fest, and there was like a knock at my door at the little trailer. I was waiting to go out, and it was Gordon Lightfoot, and I just about
Wow.
died.
Yeah.
This
Wow.
was about maybe 8-9 years ago, and he goes, Jan, Gordon. I'm like, I know who you are.
Yeah. We all know who you are.
Hey, do you mind? Would it be cool if I just went out and played a couple tunes before you went out? I'm like, Gordon, you can do the whole set if you want.
Wow.
And he went out and he did If You Could Read My Mind.
Cool.
And people went so crazy that but I'll never forget it. Like, I've just had a few of those moments that have been so just surreal. So surreal.
Gordon and Anne Murray, that's pretty much like the king and queen of Canadian music in so many.
At least I didn't fart in front of Gordon. At least I was chill.
There's always time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing about the coronavirus now, the quarantine, is that you can fart all you want while we have this discussion.
And I'm really not gassy. I want the people of the world to know that. I've got it under control.
It's just the singing. Singing forces like your diaphragm is being.
No,
contracted.
I'm all good. I rarely. That's the only 2 times I've ever farted in my life.
Just for Anne Murray.
It really just comes down to memorable moments.
God, I feel like we've known each other for such a long time.
You know, and they always say never meet your heroes, and then there's the ones like never fart in their vocal booth. You know, it's like
Yes. No, that's so sad.
So how does that work with the? I've lost the name of it now. The getting knighted in Canada. What do we call it again?
Order of Canada?
Order of Canada. I'm sorry.
It is a fiasco of a day. I was so nervous.
You have to go to Ottawa?
You go to Ottawa and you stay there overnight, and then the next day they pick you up in a bus and they take you to Rideau Hall, and you sit in a room and they tell you how you're going to go up to the Governor General and bow and how you need to stand on the stage. And I've never been that scared in my life. And,
so was the Prime Minister there and everything like that? Or
the Prime Minister was not there. This is definitely Governor General stuff. So this was Julie Payette. But it was, I was in a room full of physicists, astronauts, scientists, you know, philanthropic.
And a girl with a guitar.
And then I was just like,
how do you work out? Who says, oh, by the way, Jan, or they email you or they call you? What do they say?
They call you.
Call you.
I thought my brother had died. They said, Chris said, we're going to get this call in an hour because they'd contacted my road manager to make sure they could talk to me. And they just said, you know, are you Jann Arden Richards? I said, yes, I am. And I thought, my brother died in jail. This is what this call is. And she said, we are wondering if you will accept the blah, blah, blah Order of Canada.
What?
I remember just looking around, what? But it really was extraordinary. I'm very, very proud to.
That's so awesome. Like
I mean, it's basically, you know, bringing something to the table for your country. And I'm comfortable with that, you know, and that they pick so many different kinds, different fields. And then you go to a dinner. It was really, really interesting.
Well,
isn't it cool? Like it's one of those things that I think all the time. It's like one day you pick up a guitar, you've no idea if it's really. I mean, you're into it. You're like it's like you said. It's like a romance with this instrument, with the idea of coming up with songs and finding your voice, and then you just kind of like fast forward, and the next thing you know, you're like standing in Ottawa, getting handed a, you know, like this honor. It's like it's such a trip. Like to see you just hit that kind of level is so awesome, because I think it's good. I always want people to watch stuff like this and go and be inspired to kind of like, you know, I've always wanted to write a book, and I'm like, dude, it's coronavirus right now. Go write that book. What else you got to do? Go sit down, clackety clack, and come up with, you know, do your thing, because it's too easy to be like, meh.
Well, and you seem so humble to accept that amongst the same type of people that you were discussing when you say scientists and teachers, and you know. Don't ever for a second, I'm just looking at some of these comments coming in online, and I mean, everybody affects people in a different way. So don't ever think that your ability to affect people doesn't rank amongst the top scientists and the top teachers of this world, because again, I mean, we always put the arts as second to everything else, but I think that there's a lot of people out there.
To be honest, I have very few 8x10s signed by scientists.
Well, you know, another thing COVID shone a huge light on was how important the arts and music is.
Yeah.
Musicians and artists raised millions upon millions upon millions of dollars for food banks, for blood, for, you know, the Red Cross, for every kind. I mean, when you saw the fires in Australia, who came together? It was artists on a stage that raised $500 million for the Australian relief, for the animals being torched and the beautiful land and the people that needed help and lost their homes. Musicians, artists, dancers, people, storytellers, actors, actresses have been at the forefront of cheering people on. When you think about what people are doing at home, they're watching television in an unprecedented way. They're streaming things. I mean, the content that people have absorbed just from Hulu, Netflix, Disney, whatever. And that's all people that are storytellers. Those are the artists of our world. And I think people realize now, take that off the table, it would have been a very different corner.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine if it was back in the day, like with we just staring at a fireplace for 3 months? It's like,
yes.
You really have to hand it.
Exactly. But then that fellowship between science and art, which
absolutely
gives us the ability to sit here and do this and be in different corners of the globe and to speak in real time and have people able to watch and tap their comments. We're living in a time that is 2020 will be remembered and on the map of humanity 1,000 years from now. And here we are in the middle of it. So what are we going to do?
Totally.
We just have to be better versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, the irony they say is hindsight is 2020. That's my Ron McLean segue there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ron McLean is a hockey guy, just in case anybody's not.
Oh.
I've done gigs with Ron McLean. I've done charity gigs where it's me and Ron.
Oh, that's so cool.
Amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, having fun and making jokes, and I think I did the Stampede Parade with Ron.
So
McLean
let's touch on that for a second. You've done so many things. Is there anything that you have yet to accomplish that you want to do?
Yeah, bucket list.
I mean, don't laugh at this, but I really would like to get a metal detector and go to the fields of England and find treasure.
Oh.
You think I'm
treasure
kidding?
Or
no, I've seen
relics or treasure?
My friend, relics, either or. And I'm really archaeology fanatic, and I would love to be on a dig. Maybe an old lady with a hat and with my brush and my little shovel-y thing.
If you pitch that to the right network, that's a reality show or like a documentary series.
That's your next
network.
Yeah.
I would love to do that.
We'll come along and help you carry your shovels.
You can play music.
Or
you guys can do like the Mad Max Fury Road, the archaeology.
That's a History Channel
You can
show.
be hooked up to stuff behind me, just playing, and I'll just be digging.
Somebody write this down.
Yeah, I know.
I'll spray my teeth silver, and I'll just dig.
That's actually the name of the show. You could actually just stand there with your little shovel and bucket, and it'd be Jan's Bucket List. That'd be the name of your show.
There you go, bucket list.
Nothing about that I don't like.
You can have that one.
In your yard.
So that's it.
You probably
I'd love to have a sanctuary and archaeology and get a metal detector.
Nice.
So I'm going to do it. Maybe even next summer.
Here you go.
Love it.
You're cutting
dinosaurs in your yard out there.
What were you going to say, Brent?
I think Jan probably has some dinosaurs to dig up just in her. You guys are in Alberta.
In Alberta.
From Heller.
There's some serious dinosaur shit going on around here.
Oh yeah.
Stuff that they find.
New stuff?
Oh yeah, they're finding. They have so much stuff that they found that other people have found. That they take to the Tyrrell Museum.
Yeah.
It's impossible for them to unpack it, to clean it, to use it. I mean, they're taking the best of the best now, but there's hundreds and hundreds of bones and teeth and finds and
Isn't there an actual Albertosaurus? Am I crazy in saying that?
Yeah.
I think there is an Albertosaurus.
Isn't that the name that they give to everything before they discover what it is? Or am I mistaken on that?
Probably. Maybe, yeah. Maybe they just wait to name it. I don't know. It feels like I might have made that up, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm gonna stick with it.
It just seems very, very new.
You guys are probably going to kill me, but I'm having people for dinner that are going to be
bring them on. Bring them on.
You?
Yeah, just bring them on.
I would,
put us at the table.
They would kill me. And just so everyone's out there in quarantine, it's two people that I've been spending some time with and we're still like really careful. We don't even hugg when we come in the door. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I didn't want people going, oh my God.
Fair
she's-
enough. So let's wrap it
Pretty
up.
people.
Jann Arden live, postponed, obviously. Any idea? We don't have an idea as to when that's going to just
April, May,
June.
April,
Next
May,
year.
June is what on my calendar it says. So let's cross
Season
our
1
fingers.
of your show, everybody can stream on ctv.ca. And Season 2 premiering
And
when?
Crave. Season 2 should be out in September.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, we want to thank you
Fantastic.
for coming on the show today. That was fantastic.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Jan.
That was
This
so
has
awesome.
been the best, you know. You guys look intimidating, but you're really nice fellas.
That's a shame. He just sits there with that golden
Most
smile.
intimidating guys. Yes,
You
Jan.
guys have good hygiene, good dental care. I'm really impressed.
What are you making for dinner?
That's a lot of
Just on the
CTI
last
going.
note, what are you making for dinner for your guests?
I'm doing Beyond Meat sausages. So I'm doing a bangers and mash. So I've got cauliflower and potato with basil out of my garden and rosemary. And
Nice.
I'm doing caramelized onions. So the sausage will go on top of that, and then peas and carrots.
Nice.
Wow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Your guests are in for a
I'm
treat,
jealous.
as were our guests today
Yeah.
in for a treat because
Yes.
you were fantastic. I'd like to thank you for coming on. And next week, who wants to make the call? Who wants to introduce our guest next week?
Brandon.
We don't have
Yeah, we
anybody
do.
yet, do we?
We can
Oh yeah, we do. We do.
We
we'll
do.
confirm this off the
The
air.
mighty Jeff Neal. We will have the mighty Jeff Neal, guitar player from
Oh,
who
Streamer. Yeah.
will be talking. I'm in Winnipeg, and he's in Winnipeg. He just moved from Vancouver to
Hey, you
Winnipeg.
could be in his basement next week.
Yeah. Anyway, he has lots to talk about because, he lived in Australia for many years and worked with Jimmy Barnes, the
That's
legendary Jimmy Barnes, as well as wrote all of our favorite Streetheart songs. So we can't wait to talk to him next.
Streetheart,
Streetheart, baby.
Yeah.
Tune in.
another
Yeah.
epic band. Anyways, thanks so
No,
much,
no,
guys.
thank you,
I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Jan.
So
Enjoy
we'll say
dinner.
goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Our guest, Jeff Neal from Streetheart. Have a good week, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Yes, you will. Bye.